folks and get there. We're excited to share this with you today. I'm Matt. For those of us who haven't met, I'm the Director of Support here at RideAmigos. I've been working with the company for about 5 years, and I'm based in Roanoke, Virginia. We'll start with a quick overview of our agenda for today. The first thing we'll begin with are some just basic concepts around school pool, just for those of you who might not be as familiar with what school pool is intended to do, and also we'll talk through some of the critical concepts, critical decisions that you'll need to make as you're beginning to create school pool programs. We'll look a little at what the parent experience is for school pools, and then we'll dig into the administrative side, talking about what it takes to set up and manage school pool programs, as well as the communications and reporting options that are available to you. And as I begin, I'll also make sure folks know that I will be sharing the slides from this later, and I think we're recording the event as well. Is that right, Sydney?
Yes, that's correct.
Awesome.
So I'll be able to send it out later.
Yes, pay close attention, but don't feel like you've got to take notes unless you really, really want to. So what are school pools? School pools are a tool that is designed to let users find and message each other based on being households within the same school. The idea here is that we're helping to put users that are in close proximity to each other to help them know that their neighbors, know that they're nearby each other, and that they're interested in school pool programs. And that could be an invitation for them to carpool together or other types of pooling. We've seen kind of informal van pools, informal walk and bike pools as well, just depending on what the particular area is. So it's really a kind of a general purpose matching system to allow you to connect parents with one another who might want to do some sort of a shared commuting arrangement. Now, as we're starting to look at school pool programs and the concepts around here, one of the main things that we always like to emphasize is that school pools really work best when run as a variation of an opt-in model. So there are two primary ways that we generally see this done through the RideAmigos tool. One of those is to gather opt-in consent while users or parents or households are registering for the school year. So oftentimes this is included as just part of the school's registration to say, are you interested in being a part of a school pool program where you can be matched with other families, your data would be shared, yada, yada, yada. And the other way to do that is to have users sign up via the web as school is, after they've registered, but before school begins, using a join link that allows them to come in and enter all of their information into the website itself. So we'll be kind of seeing variations on these two opt-in models as we go through the program today. And I'll be pointing out kind of which workflows apply to which of these two. But let's start talking about just some of the advantages and disadvantages of either of these. So the first is this roster model. So the roster model being where users are opting in during school registration and you're uploading that roster into the school pool system for matching. One of the big advantages for this is that if you've got all that data in the system already, you can send out a school pool welcome email using the Get There platform, and that email can have results attached to it. It can have them come into the website to claim their household and see results immediately because all of those potentially matching families have been uploaded based on the roster data provided by the school. One of the main disadvantages of this is the fact that it is a little bit less familiar, maybe a little bit more abstract, in that you really want to make sure that when users are registering and participating in something like this, they know that when they're consenting to this, when they're opting in, that does mean that their information is going to be shared with potential matches on the web through this type of a program. So a little extra care on the kind of communication side of things up front, but it does give a really great experience when you do send out that initial welcome email with all of their matches. With the web sign-up version, the main advantage here is that users will naturally understand, I'm coming to this website, I'm entering in my information to be shared with other users. It's all going to be on the web. The disadvantage of this is that it does require kind of a two-step process to get users to see their best matches. One, to come in, sign up for the system, put their information in there, and then generally it works best that you send another email or an announcement later to all of the users from that school to come back and review who their matches are, because people are putting in their information sort of asynchronously, the first people who upload their information probably aren't going to see a whole lot of matches yet, but if they're invited to come back after there's been a period for users to enter their household information, they will have more matches then. So let's talk a little bit about the parent experience in both of these use cases. As I mentioned, with the roster upload version of this experience, that first touch point is opting in during registration for their school year with their school. And then the second touch point would be an email from the school pool system, whether that's an administrator or a manager, sending out a notification to the members of that school that would have a downloadable PDF showing their potential matches, contact info for those potential matches, and also an invitation to come into the full web portal and be able to see matches, update their information, so on and so forth. With the web sign up, the first touch point is generally a join link that is sent out via official school communications with an opportunity for them to come to the website, sign up, share their household's information. And then that second touch point is a follow-up, as we mentioned earlier, inviting people to come back into the system now that everyone has had an opportunity to register and to see all of their match results. So once, and we'll look at some of the interfaces on this, but I want to just kind of walk through the steps that we're going to see in the demonstration first. So once you have received that kind of touch point telling you to either come in and review your matches or to claim your household, you're able to come into the system, register or view or claim your household, and you'll have a new item on the menu bar that says school. Under school, you'll have specific menu items for each household that you may be claimed with. So for example, if you have students that are part of multiple schools, you might have 2 households, one for each school, and you'll be able to then see matches relating to each of those. Once you're in, you can manage your household, or you can click on that school name in order to see those matches. When you're looking at that match view, you'll be able to see your home location, your school's location, and then the location and information for any nearby families that are a part of that school. You can look and see the information about how far that user is from you, what their address is, who the guardian and who the students are. And then you can also generate a downloadable PDF of your matches as well. If you are more of an analog or paper inclined person and you want to put that on a printout on your refrigerator, there's an easy option there for you to do that. And so here's a look at what that screen looks like. So here I'm viewing my matches. I clicked on one of the matches on the left to be able to see who that is. Where it says parent and test parent on this, those are the last names of these families. And in a second, we'll look and see what this is like to interact with. One of the other features that you are able to do with this tool is after you've found matches, you can select multiple households that you might be interested in contacting about forming a school pool, and then easily take that list of contacts that you've generated, put that into your favorite email app, and then send a message to those users. We have a kind of a little pre-populated message that you can copy and paste in there. But the idea, as with kind of RideAmigos traditional carpooling tools, is that the best carpool relationships, shared commute relationships, are those that are formed more organically, where you're able to kind of find out the people that are interested in this sort of an activity and then reach out to them with a genuine message of interest and invitation to form this kind of a relationship. You're also, as I mentioned earlier, able to manage your household once you've set it up or claimed it. So that means that you can set up the address and information about this. Maybe you have that information come in from a school roster and you want to update to a different version of your preferred name, or you are moving partway through the school year and you want to update your address with that. One of the things to note is that this data is all held slightly separately from your Get There data. If you are participating in kind of the broader Get There platform, all school pool data is school pool specific. So the information that you're putting in for your household here is only ever used for school pool matching, school pool programs. It's never kind of cross-pollinated with the more general RideAmigos carpooling and trip planning functions. One of the other things, let me go back real quick. One of the other things that you can also do as well is if you have a single household that's been set up through the school or that you've set up yourself, you can share that with multiple parent accounts as well. So if two parents are both get their users and they want to make sure that both of them have access to that household, you can invite other accounts to join that household as well. Now, one last item I want to talk about real quick before we look at this from the user perspective is this idea of cross-school visibility. So by default, cross-school visibility is not turned on for any users unless they choose to turn it on. But what it means is that when you enable cross-school visibility, parents from other schools, households from other schools can see you as part of their list if they are a good match for you in terms of being nearby, somebody that might be passing by your child's school on the way to their child's school, for example. And so selecting this lets other users see who you are or where you are on the results list. But important to note, it doesn't necessarily mean that those other users are going to be able to like use your data in other ways because you're the one controlling whether or not they're able to see that. So by default, only users from your school are going to be able to see who you are, where you are, and you have the option to share that more broadly if you are interested in doing so. Also, when we're looking on the map, we'll see that users from other schools are differentiated with different iconography. And then also the PDFs that can be generated through the system always only include matches from your school. That way, if you are the school, if you're someone from the school, you're generating the PDF to share with your users. You don't want to share information from people from other schools. You're only sharing the information about people from your school. So let's take a quick look at what this looks like from the user experience side of things. So this is a view if I have, if I'm going through a system where I've had my data imported into the database and I've been invited to claim my household, the first thing I'm going to be prompted to do is to either create or log into their account and then verify the information that has been provided in the information from the school. I'll enter all that information and actually, I think I'm describing the wrong thing. This is where, sorry, this is if I've got a join link for my school. And so I'm being asked to join the school, but I do have to enter in all of this information. So you can see I've got my basic name and email address from my Get There account, but all of the other information is blank. This is where I'm enrolling all of that for the first time, including my address information and student information and so on. This is the version where I'm claiming a family that already exists. So here I can see that I'm logged into my account. I have a claim code that was included in the email that I received from my school because my school already had my roster information. And it's showing who the student is that is part of this household. And I'm asked to kind of acknowledge my understanding of this feature. I can do that. And then I will enter the Get There school pool system. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And from this point on, things will look the same regardless of whether I've set up my account through a school join link or whether I've come in from a roster import. So either of those are going to be exactly the same. So from here, I can now see I've got this new menu. I can click on Manage Household and see the options that are available to me as a household manager. At the top, we see that cross-school visibility option if we want to allow our information to be shared more broadly with parents and guardians from other schools. I can enter in the information for an additional parent or guardian, update my address, and add any notes that I might like for potential matches to be able to see. So for example, if I can only drive carpool on certain days of the week and I want people to know that ahead of time when they're looking for matches, or any other information that we might like to include for people to see. I can update my student information or remove and add students as well if for some reason that data didn't get populated initially. And lastly, we have that ability to invite others to our household or to delete the household from the system. And so one thing to note is that as I mentioned earlier, since the school pool data for your account exists somewhat separately from your main Get There account, you can choose to delete a household from the school pool without having to delete your entire Get There account. So that's something that is an important feature there for users being able to manage their own data. Next, we'll look at the search results here. So I can pull up the search results for this particular school. We've only got a few families put in our example system here, but this gives us a few things to look at. So I can see the heart icon here is my home. The school icon has some children playing, and then I can see there are blue households. The ones with the house icons on them are those from my school. The ones with the rocket icon are from other schools. And I can click on those different parent or different households and see more information about them. I can see the approximate distance. This one I can see is 900 feet away. The Herbst family over here is a little bit further away. And I can also see that information on the right as well. On the right, we also have that broken up based on these families from my school that are first, and then schools or families from other schools are listed down below. With all of these, I can click on them to get more information, who the guardian is, guardians are, who the students are, what grades they're in, information like that that might be interesting for me as I'm trying to determine who I might want to reach out to as a potential match. And then if I do see folks on this list that I think, hey, that's somebody that I'm interested in kind of initiating a conversation with, you can check the different email, the different households on that list and click email selected households. And that's going to give me that quick, easy to copy list of emails that I've gone through. This is especially relevant if you've got a list of 20 matches rather than 4, to be able to kind of go in, check the ones that you're interested in, hit that button, generate the list of emails. And again, we've got kind of some placeholder content that you can use to initiate that conversation if you're interested. From here, users can also generate that downloadable PDF of their match list as well. This is the same document that users who are just receiving that initial email can also download as well if they're already in the system. So I can see I've generated that, I'm downloading it, and I can see an example of what this match PDF looks like. So here I can see that map. Again, I'm only seeing those families that are part of my school, not the families that are shared from other schools. And I have the information about those, including the distance that those are away, and who the contacts are and the students are for those various different schools, so or different households. So really great information here. I'll also note that we're using some of what we're going to look at in a moment about the address information, name information, and logo from the school itself. So each school has their ability to update that information that would be personalized on the PDFs that get generated for them. So as I mentioned, that's the search process. We also can bring up what one of the example emails looks like. I've got that in another window. Give me just a second to drag that over here. I got it in another email somewhere.
Matt, we have a few questions in the chat.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Please.
I'll read those to you.
Yeah.
Okay. So Janice asks, if you have kids in an elementary and middle school, is there a way to find another family that has the same situation at the same schools?
Yeah. So I think the easiest way to do that would be through that cross-school visibility function, because when I look at one of these other kind of cross schools, I can see what other schools they're associated with, and that those users would show up both on my local school and on the other school list. So I think I would say if you are someone that is in a situation like that, you can do that. There is also an option where if you're doing the web sign up, where if you are creating a household, there are some ways to actually combine schools with a single household. It's a bit more of an advanced feature that I don't have kind of examples of here today, but that's a couple of different ways that you could look at that.
Okay. And then Megan asks, can parents opt out at any time, or is there information in the system the entire year? Also, do they need to opt in every year? I know family situations often change, so I was wondering if there are ways this information is kept current.
Great questions. Yeah, so the family can opt out at any time. So deleting your household is akin to opting out. The email system that we'll look at in just a second, you can also include those opt-out links in any emails that you send. And that's just a very quick and easy way for a user to have their data removed. If they either move or if they no longer want to have their data in the system. We do want to respect and honor that and make it as easy as possible to do. With regards to the kind of year over year pattern, the sort of expectation is that school household lists would be refreshed every year. So this is an annual process if parents want to participate in this, that either their rosters would be uploaded every year or that you would send out another invite link to go every year. And we'll look at some of the management side of that in just a second.
Great. Okay. And we have 2 more questions. Do you want to proceed and get to those later, or?
Let me skim them real quick and see. I've got them pulled up on my other monitor over here.
Okay, great.
The first one we can address pretty quickly is about kind of what determines a match. It is specifically proximity based. So that's the primary thing that we're looking at here is just who's closest to you. And then if there are other constraints like particular days of the week, things like that, you can either put those in the details about your household, or that can be a part of the conversation that users are having with one another. And that could be the same thing with if a guardian wants to put where they work. So if there's kind of some sense of dropping the kids off on the way to school, we've definitely seen that in other circumstances where parents are encouraged to include that kind of information in the details about their household. And last quick question is an option for parents to have their kids picked up without it being reciprocal, like parents don't have or drive a car. I mean, I think that's certainly an option. Again, the primary goal here is to get information about parents that are interested in a program like this, that are near one another, able to be in contact with each other. So I think that's another great situation where if a parent wasn't able to drive but is interested in participating in this, maybe helping pay for gas, things like that, that could be pretty easily updated in that details section when you're managing the household, or that note section, because that is visible to any other parents that see you as a potential match there. So great questions, y'all. I love it. Very engaged. So let's, well, obviously we can come back to questions on the parent experience a little bit later. We did mention removing that user data and the options for opting out there. So let me jump back into the presentation mode and we'll talk about how schools get created. So school pool schools, the initial creation of the school is handled by one of the regional program managers on Get There. So those of you who have kind of that top level advanced network or administrative access will have the ability to create schools. And once those are created, then you can explicitly assign additional managers to that school. Often that is someone from the school that might be helping to administrate that program. And then as we mentioned earlier, that school can either be reset for subsequent school years, or in some cases we've seen where, if they want to retain historical data for whatever reason, that they would sort of archive the previous school year and just set up an entirely new school entry for the coming year. Personally, I think that resetting the households is a little bit easier angle on that, but everybody has their reasons for doing things slightly differently. So once this is fully enabled on your system, which I believe we're looking at kind of beginning next week, we're going to flip the switch on this so you can start playing around. You'll be able to have a new item in your menu that'll be Manage School Pool. And then from that view, you can click on Add a New School to begin that school creation process. Each school requires a couple of certain data fields, the name of the school, an email address to associate with the contact from that school, the school year that this school pool program is for, and then the street address so we know where people are in relation to the school. You also have the ability to add a manager-only description. So if you want to keep some notes about the way a particular school is operating their program, such as, this is a roster upload school, this is a web sign up school, any other kind of nuances that you as a manager might need to know about that school's program, that's really helpful to have. And then you also have this option for a point of contact at the school. And so this can be some more specific information about who that point of contact is. There's a button where you can quickly send a message to this person as a manager. And then we do also have an optional find a school feature that I don't think, Sydney, I don't think we've talked about this, but it's kind of a lookup system where if you don't have a join link from your school and you need to find out who to contact at your school that manages the school pool program, we can surface kind of a widget that allows you to do that lookup. You're not able to kind of go straight into the school for security purposes from that widget, just because we do want to make those join links a bit more private. That way schools can have a higher confidence in who it's being shared with. But that point of contact is used there. And as we saw on that PDF earlier, the logo of your school does get used in a couple of different places as well. And that's an optional upload. So while we're managing schools, there are two levels of permissions. So we talked about this concept of a school pool manager that you can add explicitly to the school. That manager can edit the information about their school. They can import households, view and edit households. They can generate those match PDFs, and they can use the email tools to send emails to their households. As administrators, you all have slightly more advanced permissions. You do have that ability to create new schools, add managers to schools, and then you can also see if there are get their accounts that are associated with particular households. Again, because there's the ability for a single get their account could have households in multiple schools, or if it's a roster upload situation, there may be households that haven't been claimed by a get their account, and you would be able to see those more advanced user data issues as well. So as a school pool manager, whether if you are an administrator, you can always access that through manage school pools, but people that have been added explicitly as a manager for a specific school can see that in the school dropdown as a manage link for that school. And so that will show up exactly the same kind of area that we saw in just a moment ago, and we'll do a quick test run through this to see what this looks like. And so you can be added as a manager of multiple schools. It would just show each one in a list, just as if you are a family with households in multiple schools. As we were talking about with multiple school years, you may want to reset that school's data. You can either create a new school, or you can remove all those households and just update that school year field. There is an easy button to do that in the manage area of the school. Just reset households. It'll confirm that that's what you want to do, and it'll remove all of that household data from the previous year. Now, as we mentioned, there are these two kind of primary ways of populating households. One of them is the web sign up using this school join link. We saw that join link earlier. That was the one where we sign up for a get their account and then enter in all of the details about your household and information. You can share that via those official school channels as you're gearing up to start your program. And then there's the roster import option, which is visible from the view households portion of school management. It's just a button at the top right called import households. We have an example CSV, so you can make sure that that data is formatted correctly in order to be able to get that imported. We'll run a validator on that as you're bringing that in, just to make sure that doesn't have any errors. So that is the kind of, again, those two primary ways of getting the data into the system. Another look at that view households interface, which we'll take a look at together in just a second. You're able to see all of the household data that you've got in the system, either in a standard table view, or we do also have a map view where you can start to visualize where all the different households that are registered with your school are located. It's a really cool way to kind of look for patterns, especially if you're wanting to do maybe a little bit more hands-on efforts at school pool matching, or trying to put families in touch with one another. You can sort of begin to see those clusters and patterns, whether that's for school pools or even doing something more like school-oriented van pools as well. So I'm going to take a quick breath real quick, because I can see the chat window over here advancing a little bit, and I just want to catch a couple of these as we go through. So I think it looks like we've got, looks like Janice actually already got a question answered by Marnie. Thank you, Marnie. And that's perfect. And the regional program managers, yeah, okay, Sydney's got that as well. All right, cool. So y'all already took care of yourselves. I don't need to pay attention to the chat. So again, looking at that viewing of the households, you can also manage individual households and remove individual households. So again, talking about that kind of opt-out question. If you do hear from a household that they're, for whatever reason, they can't figure out how to remove themselves, or don't want to remove themselves, they want you to take care of it for them, you have that ability too. You can remove that household data as a school manager. From that viewing of households, you can also generate emails. So that's kind of the primary place that you can send emails, either from the table or the map view. You can select users and then generate the email content. Within the management area of your school, you can kind of have your default content. So if you always know that you want to start out your emails with the same thing, or you have a specific block of text that you know is always going to be included, you can set that up in the school management. But then each time you send the email, it's going to ask you to confirm what subject you use, what you want your email content to be, and you can update that every time. You have a couple of different options in terms of sort of standard system features that are included, things like the logo, whether or not every email has that opt-out link or household claim or PDF download link. And then you can send that test email to yourself prior to sending it out to everyone that you've selected. Always nice to have the ability to preview. We'll look at all of that in a second. Here's what that looks like on the school management side of things. So there's this email and PDF copy tab where you can update that default content for both the email and the generated PDF that has the additional match information. You could add additional content to that if you like. And so typically, as we talked about earlier in the call, those emails and match PDFs are often sent out after you've populated the households in your database and prior to the start of school. It's always nice to try to catch people before they set up patterns for the school year to try to help influence good habits as the school year begins. So for a roster upload situation, that's a pretty straightforward one, because you'll already have all of the data in place. For a web sign up program, generally you would want to give some amount of time after you've promoted the sign up before you prompt people to kind of come back in one more time and check out their matches. So the workflow is a little bit different in terms of like the lead up to that, but once you get to that point of sharing that email, it's generally a similar time frame as you're getting close to the start of school. Again, we've talked about opt-out in a couple of different contexts. Especially if you are using that roster upload feature, it's definitely important to include that opt-out link when you're sending that initial email. That way it's super easy for people to decide, actually, this seemed interesting at the time, but I decided now I don't want my information shared. You can also have that claim, the household claim link, which makes it really easy for users to come in, quickly claim and update their information. And then another advantage of that PDF download feature is it does allow users, even if they don't want to go through the process of claiming the household and setting up an account on Get There and all of that, especially if you're doing a roster import, it does allow users to be able to download that initial result without having to go through all of the process of registration. The other advantage of that PDF registration is that you can do paper mailings with that. So as an administrator or a manager on the school, you can generate up to 100 households of PDF matches at a time and be able to really quickly kind of generate that, print that, sort that out if you want to do physical mailings for school pool as well. I think that's probably a little less common these days than it used to be, but there are still some places, some school districts where not everyone has email addresses in order to be able to participate in something like this, and you want to be sure to include an ability for that. So we'll look at some of the tools that we can do for filtering on the management side of things to do some of that targeted content if there are users without email addresses that you want to do more analog or paper mailings for. All right, so before we go into Q&A, I want to do the whole demo on the management side now. So let's take a look at what this looks like. So I'm going to come to Manage School Pool, and I will see the schools that are underneath of my management purview. So this is, again, as if I'm like kind of that regional manager, administrator level. I'll have multiple schools that I've created and that are sort of under my umbrella. I have the ability to view all of the households that are a part of those schools that I manage. And I can also add a new school from here. So again, adding a new school just asks for some basic information about that school And then if we come back and look at managed school is basically an expanded version of the new school form where we can see all of that information. We have that parent join link. So again, this is what we looked at just a moment ago when we want to have somebody join the system fresh. This is kind of the web sign up option. We also have that description of your school, the location of your school, point of contact. And this is where we can add those explicit managers as part of this. So if I look at demo Matt, I'm going to add myself as a manager, so just so we can see what that looks like in the menu here in a second. And I've got that school logo upload as well. So I'll update my school pool and look at the email and PDF copy tab. Again, the email content here is kind of the template. Anytime you send an email, this will come up automatically. The PDF content is that information that would show up as part of the cover letter whenever you generate a PDF. And you can decide when you're generating that PDF. Does it include a cover letter by default? Are you including information where they could enter in the URL to claim the household online, and how many matches you want to include? If you're especially in a particularly dense area, you may want to include more or less matches based on that. And then lastly, you've got a communications history tab where you can see emails that you've sent out through the system, as well as any batch PDFs that you've generated from the reports view. So looking to the more actions button, I don't think you can see the pop up here, but I've got two options that show up when I click on that: view households and reset households. So I'm going to go to the view household screen and take a look at this. So again, this is looking at this as kind of that administrator level versus the manager level. So one of the unique things about seeing this as administrators, I have this user accounts column and that is showing me the get there accounts that are associated with particular households. That is information that is specific to you as an administrator. Someone who is only manager of the school doesn't have access to that additional information about their get there accounts. We also have a map view. So again, looks kind of very similar to what we saw from the end user match view. I can see the map of the households for that school. I can look up the information about any of those parents, and I can come in and select those houses or those households either from the map view or from the list view as well, if I want to use those as the basis of an email. Over here, I can do the same thing. I can select all with email, or select all without email. And that select all without email is a particularly useful feature if I do want to generate PDFs specifically for people that I know I can't send them emails. I want to be able to mail them something, or have something that we can send home with their child from school. It makes for a really easy way to differentiate which users you want to target in which way. So I'm going to go ahead and select all with emails and look at the action options I have for them. I can either generate a PDF or email selected users. So I'll click email selected users to show that interface. So here I can see my default email subject and email content. This email content you can get a little bit fancy with. We support what is called markdown syntax, which is kind of a lightweight way of specifying additional content. And so if you look at the link that I have here for get there, I'm using that markdown format to include an additional link in my email content. This can also be useful if you have a page on your school website or something like that that talks more about the school pool program that you want to make sure to reference. You can include links. You can include different formatting. So for example, if you wanted to use bold title formatting or underline certain text, all of that's available through that markdown syntax. And there's a link to how you can use that. And that's actually the same throughout the RideAmigos platform. So if you are a manager and you're managing like a rewards program or a challenge or other things like that, that markdown syntax is something that we do use in a lot of contexts to be able to give you a little bit of additional styling ability over the content. Again, I've got those options that I can choose whether or not to include them in this particular email. And I can send myself a test email or go ahead and send that email to everybody on the list. I also, from this view, have that opportunity to create new households. So if I've got someone who maybe I'm doing a roster-based system and I've got somebody who kind of gave me their information to add to the system after the roster had already been generated, I can enter that manually as a new household. And I've got that import households feature. So again, this is where I can download a sample CSV, upload that, have it validated, and be able to upload the school households directly. I can also jump from here back to that manage school, or I can come in and manage individual households as well. So if I want to need to update this information, I can do that. Again, I also have the ability to delete that that household from here as well, and see who that user account is that's associated with the household. So very similar to a user editing their own household, just the ability to do that. I also have the ability as a administrator to see all of the households that are within any of the schools that I'm managing. So this can be really useful. I'll just kind of jump back and forth so you can see how to get here. So from that main school pool page, you can view all households. And this is really easy if I want to say like, oh, actually, I want to, somebody has contacted me. They need me to either remove or update their information, but they didn't tell me what school they're a part of. I can quickly look this up and find people based on just some of the information they've shared with me, and can edit or delete households directly from there without having to dig through their particular school entries. So that can be a useful feature for that kind of top level administration. And again, when another school year comes up, I can come in, manage my school, remove the households, and then update that school year. The nice thing about that is that it does leave my parent join link the same from year to year. Or I can also update that join link from year to year manually if I do want to use all the same school settings, but want that join link to change for security purposes from year to year. So I'm going to stop for another breather now that we've gone through a bunch more features, and we can see if we've got any questions, or if any new questions want to come up. We could certainly take some of those. I know we've got a few minutes still here that we can capture. So let's see. Kim is sharing a little feedback. Markdown syntax is hard. I don't disagree. We actually do have some interfaces that we're working with that kind of automates some of that, and more of a what you see is what you get style editor. So that is something that we recognize. It's not it gives you power, but it's not necessarily the easiest power to harness. And so we are certainly looking at some ways to make that a little bit easier. And yeah, photos are probably the hardest in that, as you mentioned, Kim. Julia asks, is there a way to collect data on successful matches or carpool trips logged with schools? So that is kind of one of the limitations of this more sort of just purely match connection oriented model, is that there's not, by its nature, is not a feedback loop. What we have seen in other contexts is use of the RideAmigos survey tool to be able to send out a link to a survey to all of the participants that were in your household list. So for example, if I'm coming over to my households, I could select everybody, create an email for that list, and then within this email content, whether it's within the first month or so of school, if you want to kind of get an update on people that are have found successful matches, if you want to kind of test the water, or if you want to do something at the end of the school year to evaluate your program success, being able to use the RideAmigos survey tool, or a survey tool of your own choice if you have your own preferences, to be able to include that in a kind of a follow-up message to the participating households, is often kind of the way that we see that those sort of success metrics are being measured here. Cool. Any other questions? This is your chance. You've got I'm your captive for a little while longer here. So happy to address any curiosities, questions, whether it's about things that can or can't be done, the ways we've seen other people make use of the tool, anything like that.
It'd be great, Matt, if you had some examples of some successes, or even some things that maybe didn't work for folks, so we can learn from that.
Yeah, so I think honestly, a lot of the biggest learnings that we've had other customers kind of working through is that process of getting households into the system. I think the more buy-in and support that you've got from a local school, the better that always seems to go. We've had a couple of regions that have sort of experimented with this concept of sort of school pools that are more kind of exclusively like run and organized by the region. So like the region may set up something for a school and share that join link with people that are a member of that school, but there's not necessarily as much buy-in or support from the school itself to encourage users to get in there and to participate. Those are the ones that we've seen struggle the most, because especially with school pool, you're really depending on critical mass of people being willing to participate. Honestly, the ones that we've seen most successful with that kind of critical mass are the ones that are able to kind of go that extra mile and get this incorporated into the school registration process, get users, get parents to agree to participating in this just as part of registering their student and sharing their data as part of that in a roster style setup, just because you do tend to get a little bit more opt-in and a wider set of potential matches in those cases. That said, it's certainly, like, we have lots of successful programs that do the web join model as well. But again, it really comes down to kind of that initial encouragement of getting people to sign up, to put their information in, and then having kind of that well-timed follow-up that's given people enough time to enter their information, and then actually get some good matches out to people. I think a couple more questions on the side here. Liability issues for school districts or others that want to promote or support. Honestly, that's something that we on our side haven't really been involved in. That's something that's generally been something that the regional partner has addressed. Any of that, we have within our kind of, on the RideAmigos side, within our user policies and whatnot, we have kind of liability protections related to that and to our customers. But that's certainly something that if you have concerns about, you would want to talk to your local folks about that. I love Ellen's question here about kind of walking buses or walk and bike to school days rather than ride matching. I think that is one of the benefits of this style, because it is just kind of purely location based, and it's even like all of the language is very much generic or mode agnostic. So when I'm looking at my results as a family, I'm able to see that that it's all very much about just kind of looking for matches, not about, oh, carpool with these people. And so it can really take different flavors based on what type of program the school is wanting to promote. So if you are wanting to do like a walking train or a bike to school together kind of a thing, it can really flex quite easily to that. And we have seen that done in other places. Question from Katie about flyers or marketing materials. We don't have flyers or marketing materials. We do have some support documentation, kind of end user oriented support documentation that we can point people to. For the most part, with flyers, informational stuff, most of these programs have really kind of all had their own unique local flavors in terms of what specifically they're promoting, and also how they're running the program, whether it's a roster import or a web sign up. So generally we see that taken care of at the local level. Yeah, I like the question about seeing, this is from Heidi, about being expanded with transit. I don't know that we've seen a whole lot of that, but I think that's a really interesting idea of kind of, being able to pool together to do transit ride to school, helping multiple families. I think that's an interesting angle that I think, especially like considering what your context may be, could be something really cool to explore. Question, is the website info in different languages? So that does support, this does support our standard languages that are available on Get There. So Get There has English, Spanish, and Chinese by default, and all of these things should be available on that. That said, any information that an individual enters is going to be like anything that you manually enter, like your, the notes about your family or your situation, that would all be in whatever language the person who enters it in would be. All right, looking at, okay, yeah, and Sydney mentioned we do have some materials from the Denver, very successful Denver program that's been doing this for years that are kind of a great example. Sydney, I don't know if you want to share anything more from what you all have. I know that you've talked some with the folks in Denver. If there's anything else that you've gleaned from that that might be helpful for the folks on the call.
Yeah, for marketing materials, she shared a presentation that she gives,
Great.
and then just some flyers and email language. So I can definitely share that with people who are interested. And then they use, Matt, do you remember what model they use?
I know that they've used both in the past. I think they've gone over time. They've trended more towards the web sign up model than the roster sign up, just because it's often a little bit easier to get the schools to play with that rather than getting the school to kind of share the customer data from their school registration process. And so I think that's the trend that we've kind of seen over time. I still think that in situations where you can get that kind of buy-in from a school and a willingness to include that in registration, it gives you a bit better kind of workflow in terms of engaging users. But again, if anybody can make it work, Denver can and has done so successfully with both of those different models.
Yeah, she has been great and just really happy to help and answer questions. So maybe there could be an opportunity to connect with her and have a Q&A session with some people on this call to learn more about her successes.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier documentation as well. We do also have kind of administrator and manager focused documentation in addition to sharing this video and slide deck after the fact. This is all on our help.rideamigos.com site. Talks about the different school pool roles, the different abilities that are available for folks, the ability to manage school pool schools, so kind of all of the information about that, talking about consent and opt-in, and the different methods for having people imported or signed up and using those tools. So a little bit of additional information there. And then, as I mentioned, we also do have some basic information that you can link to if you want for school pools for end users to be able to learn a little bit more about that feature as well. Anything else? Got just a couple minutes here.
This is Stephanie, and I want to give
Hi,
a huge
Stephanie.
thanks to RideAmigos and Alta for all of their amazing support and sharing all the features that are available in the RideAmigos tool. I did not budget for a lot of technical support from Alta, so they're kind of squeezing it in there. But if this is something that you like, I can work more technical support into a future contract next year.
Very exciting. We are, and from the RideAmigos side, I'll just say that we're excited to be able to offer this tool to you all and to see what you can do with it. It's always fun to see what things can really kind of grow and take root in different contexts. So I hope it ends up being a useful tool for you.
Thank you, Matt. This was super helpful. All right, and with that, I think we'll close it out, and I will be sure to send the recording and those marketing materials to this whole list. So thank you everyone for attending.
Thanks, everybody.